Hey everyone, welcome to the Empowered PCS. I'm here with Madeline and Melinda again. We're going to be bringing you some awesome information today. So just to kick things off, we're going to introduce ourselves again in case you're just jumping in. I'm Christina Zimmerman from Whidbey Island, Washington, and I also cover the Florida Panhandle.
I'm Madeline Friddle, and I'm in Jacksonville, Florida.
And Melinda Cruzzi-DePerna here in sunny San Diego.
All right, so hope everyone's doing well today. We're going to be talking about why it's important to choose a realtor, and not just to choose a realtor, but to find the right one. We all know how important it is when you're moving to an unfamiliar area. You don't know anybody there. You don't know the area at all. You need someone you can not only trust, but someone who's going to fight for you to get you the best deal and where you need to be. So it can get a little scary trying to find a realtor. It can get overwhelming. You know, if you go on to any of those different home search sites and you hit call realtor or ask a question to a realtor, you're going to get about 50,000 calls. And it could be calls from top agents, experienced agents, all the way down to someone who just got their license and has never sold a home before. So we're going to give you some tools, some questions that you can ask agents to get you the right agent for you, and to make sure that you're asking the right questions to find that person. So some of the things we're going to talk about are finding out how they understand the market, their knowledge of the market, their negotiating skills, attention to detail as far as managing deadlines for you, understanding the PCS process. What are they offering for you that's going to make it easier for you? And just understanding how to make this process as easy as possible for you, because we know how hard it is to PCS. There's already enough stress with it. The last thing you need is a realtor who's just basically sending you paperwork. So
yeah, let's take some weight off your shoulders, right?
Yes, that's what we're here for.
That's the goal.
So Melinda, you were going to start off with talking about kind of setting expectations. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I think one of the really important things is before you don't just start looking at houses or have an agent who just starts sending you things from the MLS. That's not where this starts. It starts with a in-depth interview that goes both ways. I call it a needs analysis. And then during that needs analysis, the agent setting expectations as well as you setting expectations from them. You know, we deal with people who are currently stationed all over the world. And like just a simple example is, how do you want to be communicated with? Well, if somebody's on a sub, it's going to be different. And who wants to be communicated with? Do you want these things to go to both people if there's two people involved? Is there somebody else coming in on the buying decision that we need to talk about? Finding out, here it's funny when we're dealing with townhomes and things like that, even asking the question, do you have a pet? How big is it? Okay, it sounds silly, but people want to talk about, well, I want a 3-bedroom house with 2 baths and a 2-car garage, and I want to be within 20 minutes of base. That's just the basic surface. And then here in San Diego,
Google search version.
Say that again?
It's like the Google search version. It's like, these are the basics, and we need to deep dive into like what's more important.
Right. We need to ask things like lifestyle questions. So if you went on any of the earlier episodes, I showed just how big the area is you could be. Well, what do you do? One of the questions is, when you're not working, what do you do? And then if there's a spouse involved, what do you do? Like, what do you like to do? I've had people that need to be near a dojo, or they ride horses, or they could care less about surfing, but they want to hike. And that can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of difference if you tell me you don't care about the surfing.
And you can't put that in a search engine either.
No. And if you don't ask those questions, you don't know. And your guys, you might get to come here on a home search. And right now you might not. And then you waste your time looking at 50 homes because they didn't ask you the right questions, and you go out for a day, a marathon day, the kids are crying, everybody's hungry. and it's just because they didn't spend the time. So we spent a lot of time chatting up front to find out what those needs are. And then on the flip side, back to the expectations. Like here, it's been a seller's market for a long time. And unfortunately, our military people that are active duty don't get paid enough to have their pick and choose. So it's really competitive. So we have to talk about expectations that, let's just say you're pre-approved for $500,000 and you're looking at homes on some of those search sites that are 550 because you were taught, hey, we offer less than what it's listed for. Not going to work here. You're going to have your heart broken. I'm not even going to show you houses that are 500 in this current market. We're going to look at houses that are 480 because I know that they're not actually priced at what they're going to sell for. So you really need somebody who's going to be honest with you and set those expectations so that you can hit your time frames. We want you in a house when you move here. We don't want you sitting and chewing through your savings at the Navy Lodge.
And a good experienced agent will be able to show you, look, statistically, the sales in our market for the past 3 months are going for 100% of list price, and to be able to show you these facts. So, coming into it, okay, I'm going to have to get a house at 100%, list price.
Right. You can't automatically assume 30 grand is going to come off.
Right. We might be able to do that because, and I think Christina, you're going to talk about that, about negotiating. Like there are ways that we might be able to get you a deal. There's things to look for, but it's setting the expectations, and it depends on your expectations. Like I have this one amazing client. She's a dental hygienist. He's Navy. And she is the most detail-oriented client. So what I would think is turnkey, move-in ready, she would say was disgusting. And yet, one of their friends that they referred to me from the Navy school out in Rhode Island, they came like a month later, and they were in a totally different place. Just because they're friends doesn't even mean that their expectations. It was night and day experiences about what they want.
And it's totally person to person. I mean, you even mentioned earlier slight like communication styles and getting to know each family you're working with. I mean, you might have one where the wife is the leader in terms of choosing the house and the husband couldn't care less, or vice versa. Or I'm working with a family right now where the husband is in a workup cycle. So he's off and on the ship constantly and deading out constantly. So my primary mode of communication with them has been his ship email and her personal email.
Right.
If he were on shore all the time, we might do both personal emails or maybe a group text message, depending on what they prefer. But in this case, his ship email is the only way he's going to receive emails from me. So, it's that conversation of figuring out what's going to work best for that person.
One of my favorite things that I think this all boils down to, as far as the way we all work with our clients, is we're not salespeople. A lot of realtors are. We're the type that listen to what you want, and we're going to go find it. We're not going to try and sell you on a home that doesn't fit what you're looking for. We're going to try as hard as we can to find that close enough to perfect match for you, because it's going to sell itself once you walk in. So I think that's
the reality is the customers have to live there. We don't. So we need to make sure we're putting them somewhere that they're happy and they want to be. Whether it's 2 years or 11 years, doesn't matter. 20 years.
And word travels quickly in the military community. And so for us to stay in business and be successful and get referrals from past clients, we have to do a really good job. So we're not going to push you into something that's not going to go well, because it's not going to go well for us either. So.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves on that. And I feel like, I'm older than you guys, so I have that mother instinct going. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people get pushed into spending everything they're approved for, as opposed to what they're comfortable with or what their BAH is. And I think that's a matter of respect. Like I need to respect what your values are and what your situation is. And I don't want to ever sell a house because you couldn't handle it financially after.
Right.
So that's I had a client, they're both Navy, both active duty, and they came to me 6 months after buying the house, and it was too much for them. There's just the two of them and a dog. It was a 4-bedroom house. It was too much landscape, too much everything. And we ended up selling it 6 months later and moving them to a townhome because their agent had encouraged them to spend the full amount that they could qualify for.
Yeah, that's scary. I mean, that's something that a lot of big large lending companies don't talk about. Usually if you use a smaller local lender, they're kind of like us, where word of mouth is how we run our businesses. So they're going to tell you up front, yeah, you're approved for 450, but you can really afford 350, and having that conversation so you are happy and comfortable once you've bought your home and you're settled in.
And part of that is looking at your personal goal of a monthly mortgage or monthly like budget, and knowing, okay, well, I can spend maybe $1,600, which I realize would be in San Diego is not close to realistic for buying a house, but at least in Jacksonville, it's very realistic for a mortgage payment. I want to pay $1,600, which is what my BAH is, and then go to a lender and say, what does that translate to in terms of a full purchase amount?
Right.
Because there's going to be taxes, insurance, all these other fees, not just the mortgage, that lender, if they are working primarily with you, can help you make sure you're staying your goals, not someone else's.
And it's important when you're looking for a realtor where you're PCSing to, they can recommend a good lender for you who's getting the best interest rates, who's experienced with VA loans. Just know you don't have to go with Navy Federal and USAA. There are a lot of different options, and some of them can save you a considerable amount of money. So make sure you're talking to your agent once you decide on that right agent, because that will save you money in the long run. So
look to a future video for that.
yes, that one's going to be fun. So great. Well, we covered setting expectations and kind of what we do to get on the right track with our clients. And Melinda, you mentioned that I was going to talk about negotiating. So this is where it's kind of important to talk to whatever agent you're interviewing and find out, what's your experience in the business. Are you a part-time agent? Are you a full-time agent? What does your sales history look like? Because that's going to tell you if they're the right agent for you. I have 3 deals recently that altogether, let's see, one house I talked down to 60,000 off asking price. Another one was 80,000 off asking price. And the other one we got for half price.
There you go.
And all of these are in a seller's market. And really it's because I knew the situation for both parties. And I'm not trying to get either party in a situation that's uncomfortable for them. I'm not going to force someone to come down to where they're just broke and they're having to come with money to the closing table. Nothing like that. But what I want is a win-win for both sides, to be happy, for the seller to leave their house knowing they got the most they could and they can move on to their next adventure, and for the buyers to know that they got the best deal they could. So when they need to resell in 3 years because they're PCSing again, they're hopefully going to make money or at least break even, depending on the market. So it's important. But with those properties, it's, again, setting expectations, like you said, Melinda, those were very specific situations where I knew that I could talk them down. The one that we got for half price was because the agent who had listed it put it in the wrong MLS. So it had been on the market for a year because no one even knew it was there. And the seller was at the point where they just felt like they had a terrible lot and no one was going to take it. And so of course me and my buyer came in and said, oh, we'll take it. We'll take it for half price, and all the while we knew it was just because no one was seeing it. But my buyer got an insanely good deal. The seller's happy with what they got and they can move on. They don't have to worry about it sitting there for another year, but having an agent who knows the market, who knows the situation and knows that it's in the wrong MLS or whatever, so we can work for you and fight for you to get the best deal. And sometimes, if you're in an area where it's a seller's market and you can't talk them down, knowing how to make the terms so appealing that even though you're coming in with maybe a low offer, they just can't pass up that you can meet their closing date and you're not going to ask for repairs or XYZ. Right. So your agent can kind of hash out some of these scenarios with you and say, hey, I know you want to come in at this price. Why don't we make it really appealing in these other areas for them? So that way they're happy, you're happy, and we all get to the closing table,
Don't you think that kind of comes back to exactly how we started? It's the agents knowing what questions to ask of the other agents and what to look for. Like, you bring to mind somebody recently that it's a seller's market. It's a great house. It's all of that. And yet what I was able to find out was that the lady selling it was behind and on her payments. And so she needed out fast, so she didn't end up with a short sale or anything like that. So that our ability to close it, and again, that's a great lender choice, our ability to close a VA loan in 21 days. And I think that's going to bring us to Madeline's conversation about having the right vendors too. Not just lenders, but the right vendors to be able to act fast. So it's questions. There's so much to the what the agent can do for you other than just open the doors.
Yeah. It's a really good point, because the one that went down considerably had only been on the market for 1 day. And
that's awesome.
The biggest deal for them was she had recently broke her foot. She was single and elderly. She couldn't do repairs, and who the heck was she going to call when everything is kind of shut down? You know, getting a contractor out to do repairs would be very difficult, and she needs to move soon. So being able to understand that and convey that to the buyers, to where the buyers are fine. They're going to remodel it anyways. So they said, don't worry about repairs. We'll do an inspection and make sure there's no major issues. But once they found out that the house is good, great, let's all move on to closing. And that was so much more important to that seller. So she's happy, and my client's got an incredible deal. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, negotiations is way more than just a purchase price. I mean, at least in Florida, it's a 10-page contract, or at least in Northeast Florida, it's a 10-page contract for a reason. There's a lot more going on in it than just the number you write down. So yeah, that's awesome. Good job on those deals, Christina.
Thanks. So speaking of how long the contract is, do you want to talk about what we do with managing deadlines and then also vendors?
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, buying a house can be a whirlwind, whether you're type A or type B. It's just a lot to sort of consider. You're moving to a new city, you're PCSing, you're packing up your whole house and having movers come and moving hopefully to an address that you haven't closed on yet. And it can be a lot. Part of what we do and why it's important to truly interview an agent is because you have to know and trust that we'll help you along the steps and get you. So it looks like we got cut off there, a little Zoom mishap, if you will. I was trying to discuss basically managing timelines and going through the transaction. So what I was saying was it can be a bit overwhelming. You're PCSing, you've got a lot going on, and it's important that us agents take that load off your shoulders and explain to you exactly what's going to happen as it happens before it happens. You don't want to find out like, oh, your binder deposit's due by 3 p.m. today. You want to know a week prior that is going to be something that's on the horizon. So one thing that I do that, I've heard it helps my customers is I send a lengthy email each week, letting them know what the steps are, what we're going to expect. This first week of going under contract on a house, we're going to have this, and this. This is when it's scheduled. This is what we need to decide on. These are the conversations we're going to have. If you're a customer that would rather receive text messages from me instead of phone calls, totally fine. Just let you know when I'm going to text you about inspections, reports, that kind of thing. And then the week before closing, knowing where closing is, who the heck to talk to about wiring closing costs and all of those things. You don't want to be having to ask your agent for that information. We provide it to you because it's part of our job, is making sure you're informed, like I said, before it happens, not as it's happening, but before. And I even mentioned inspectors. Coming from a different city, you might not have a clue who an inspector is. And that's a good thing, because it's our job to know who is good at looking at older homes. There's a section of Jacksonville that all the houses were built in the early 1900s. You want to have someone that knows what to look for. You want to have someone that's really great at explaining it over the phone. For people who will not ever be in town. Maybe it's a virtual showing, and they go through an inspection and I go to inspections, but then they get this report and they have no idea. You want to make sure you have an inspector that is very good at explaining what that means, what maybe issues or non-issues could come from that list on the inspection, and what to worry about, what really not to worry about. Because I mean, we all know inspections are like 40 pages long, and it's a lot. And it can be very overwhelming if you don't know what to look for, and you want to have an agent that can walk you through that and say, hey, you know, that's a matter of painting that section, that's going to be fine, versus, hey, that looks like a future pipe leak, we really need to investigate that. So
and Madeline, don't you think that your agent needs to be able to go 3 deep too? Because the inspector can't recommend who to go to,
right,
at least not here. So when there is something with the pipe, they need to be able to have the plumber and the roofer and the HVAC guy. So you need to have a really good database and relationships of who to go to, because now you're under your deadlines to get those extra inspections in.
Yeah, and that's actually one of my favorite things too, is an inspection report comes back and you're asking for repairs, or maybe not, depending on the house. I mean, it's person to person, but if you're asking for repairs and you can suggest an electrician that you both know is reasonably priced and really good and trustworthy, and then from the buyer's side, your buyer's getting an electrician we know, not just Joe Schmo that might do a good job, that's an added bonus, right? That's a network and a relationship that we have with workers in our cities that we know they do a good job and we trust them. I mean, most of the people I recommend have actually done work on my own home. So, you know,
it's so important because I had a client who was military, and they went for a house that was previously under contract. The contract had fallen out. It was no fault of the seller, but my clients ended up getting it under contract. Well, one of the items that came up on the report was electrical problems, and that's a pretty significant problem, you know, that you want to get taken care of. So the listing agent and I used this electrician, and come to find out, the seller had already paid an electrician to do the exact work that was caught on the inspection report. But it was just the Joe Schmo electrician who charged them for the work and never did it. And that's the situation you can get into if you're military, you're coming in from, you know, you don't know who to call. That's what we have for you. And I always send out a list to all of my buyers in their welcome packet email of good vendors to call. If you need someone to put in a fence for you, or someone who can come work on your plumbing, here are my top people that I've actually used. And when you need to call them, that's who I would start with. So giving you that extra level of service so you don't have to go start hunting people down.
And once again, we're
back to that
on the line.
yeah. It's back to that boots on the ground. Sometimes people wonder, well, are you in cahoots with them? No, it's not at all. It's yes, do we become friends with some of those vendors because we use them so much? Sure, but it's because they've served our clients well. It's our reputation. Everybody we ever recommend, it's our reputation. And like you said, I think it was you, Christina, said the military community is tight, and we don't want to blow that. So it's got to be somebody who's good and trustworthy.
Right. I mean, this whole business is about trust. And to be honest, I'm going to segue myself here, but it's just, like, the whole thing is about trusting an agent. And we talk about interviewing agents and getting to know them. I a little bit just want to vibe with you on the first phone call and see if we mesh personality to personality, because I'm sort of type A. I'm going to have my lists and my everything good and figured out. And I want to make sure that that's okay with you. If you're type A too, we're great. If you're type B, I'm going to adjust how I work with you to make sure that you're comfortable and, you know, I got it under control. But going back to the trust thing, I mean, we talk a little bit about virtual walkthroughs and not ever seeing a house before you buy it. That can be scary, but it's about trust. Some of my customers have called me their investigator, which I thought was sort of cute when it first happened, but that I actually really like it. When you're showing a house and you're walking through, and I deal with a lot of first-time home buyers, they don't know what to look for. They're just sort of blown away by the first house they walk in, and they see the beautiful kitchen and they like the paint colors, and there are all these aesthetic things, and they're not looking at the crack in the drywall or the weird discoloration in the ceiling and all the stuff that makes a home potentially have issues. And it's our job to point that out. I mean, we can't just let them get excited about this beautiful home and it's the perfect layout for them and their dog will love the yard, and not see that that roof clearly has a leak and they just painted over it and hoped it would work, you know?
Or better yet, on the sight unseen, there's some agents that wouldn't tell you, it smells kind of funky in here, or
Yeah.
the cat, the pet, or whatever, those things that you can't see on a virtual tour. If you don't have that trust with an agent that's really got your back, that would be a really unpleasant thing to come into.
Yeah.
It's very important. I had 8 sight unseen clients last year.
Wow.
And I am so nervous when they get there because I want them to love it. And so you better believe when I'm doing that FaceTime walkthrough or video walkthrough or whatever I have to do, I'm like, there's a dot right there that you need to know about. Or, I will point everything out because I want you to know coming in exactly what you're getting into. And one of the clients last summer, I showed him this house. It had been completely redone. It was a flip. And walking into it, like you said, Madeline, it was incredible. It just blew us all away. It was beautiful. But as I'm walking through, taking my FaceTime video, the floor is going like this. And you couldn't see it in the video. So they had it staged and they had an empty wine bottle. And I'm like, let's just try this. And I set it down in the kitchen and it rolled all the way through the living room. And then we noticed when it got to the living room, the windowsill and the floor were like that. So they didn't even line up. Like you could see it was a significant foundation problem that, obviously we'll do a home inspection. So it'll save them from getting into a bad situation. But a home inspection in Washington is $450, give or take.
Do you want to spend $500 to know you're going to walk away?
Plus, with our timelines here in California, with how competitive it's been, we order the appraisal the day you open escrow. So that's $500 or more. And you have the inspection. We're doing everything concurrently, so they can be out $1,000. And for a lot of families, that they can't afford that. So we have to have that eye. We're not inspectors, but we have to say, this could be a potential issue, or especially in the flips.
I mean, and getting like I've even joked, I get down on my hands and knees and like will look really closely at stuff, and some of my customers, I'll be in a dress or something and they're like, what are you doing? But it's important, right? You want to show. I'll even take my shoes off to feel the carpet and be like, hey, FYI, carpet's a little sticky, don't really know how that happened, just don't want you to think that it's like plush because it looks gorgeous in the photos. There's so much more to a house than just what you see in the professional photos, and that's part of our job too, is hiring a great photographer, but also because you want to get people in the house.
Right. When we're selling your house, we're doing all these things, our virtual tours and all that kind of stuff aren't going to show these things.
Right. But
when we're representing you as a buyer, because we do both sides, it's going to be different. But like when I do buyers, I also get out on the street because there's all that part they don't want to see. And I'm like, okay. And I don't want to make that judgment. Like what's too much street noise for me may not be too much street noise for you, but I'll say, wait, quiet. Can you hear the freeway over there?
Right.
And then like I can remember one turning the camera and saying, I just want you to know there's power lines there. That doesn't show in any pictures. Are you good with that? Or are you bad with that? Here's what the rest of the neighborhood looks like. Right. Your house is brand new. That house looks like what we call a neighborhood in transition.
Well, and even like showing outside the neighborhood, if it's sprawl or it's local restaurants, or if it's, a 6-lane highway is 2 doors down from you. There's so many different aspects of a sight unseen purchase that an agent who's just trying to sell a house will not tell you. And you'll end up maybe in a part of town that you personally, you wanted a defined neighborhood with like the community pool. And instead you get, I don't even know what, but you don't get what you're looking for because that agent wasn't willing to show you, hey, this house is perfect for you, except for the lifestyle you were choosing.
And there are a lot of agents who prey on military because they know you don't know the area. I had a listing in Florida that had a train track behind the fence, and you would never know it was there unless you Googled it and looked at a map showing it behind there. But even still, there were so many trees, you might not be able to see it. So I had the listing, I got a buyer, and I knew they were going to love the house, but I knew they were going to hate the noise because they had a baby. And I could have very easily walked through and been like, look, that's perfect, you should buy it.
Right.
But I showed them, I'm like, let's look over the fence. And I held the phone over the fence and I said, this is right here. And the train goes by multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And it was a deal breaker.
Yeah.
But that's the importance of finding that right agent who's going to do that for you. So
I will even so I'm 5'5", which used to be average for females, but I'm pretty sure it's short now. But point of that being, one of my first customers that I did sight unseen, she was 5'6". So I literally would pace out the rooms. Like, this is 6 of my large steps, and she would pace it out in her house to get an idea of room size. I mean, that's something you can't show in FaceTime or recorded video, is like, hey, this is actually sort of a small living room. I don't know, do you have a 9-foot couch or a 6-foot couch? Are you getting a new couch? You know, like, there's so much more to it than just, it's pretty.
right. So we've kind of covered most of the topics. The one of them that we didn't want to leave out is, you know, we've talked about finding someone who will negotiate for you, someone who knows the market so they can help educate you on what type of offer to make. Can you lowball them? Can you, you know, get away with this, or do you need to come in at full price? What are the expectations? Understanding deadlines and knowing that we're here to manage those for you. I had a recent sale close. It was the seller, and we handled everything for him, me and my partner in Florida. And at the end, he goes, I didn't even feel like I sold my house. He's like, all I had to do was pack a box. And I'm like, that's how we want you to feel.
Cool.
So that's what we're all working hard for you to do. One of the other things when you're interviewing people is to understand what fits you best. You know, we talked, Madeline, you talked about personality, making sure your personality meshes. Because we're going to be working together very closely. So if you just can't stand the agent you're talking to, you might need to find another one. But beyond knowing that personality, there are a few different ways realtors work, and we have independent agents and we have teams. Yeah. And understanding what works best for you. Are you the person who wants a whole team where you're talking to an admin, an agent, another agent? You know, they might have some systems that independent agents might not, or something like that, but is that the fit for you? Or do you need to talk to an independent agent, someone who does everything themselves, so you're talking to the same person the whole time? So, and I know both of you can weigh in on this, but I think that's important questions to ask and to know when you're interviewing agents.
Definitely. I mean, I'm an independent agent, but I do use a transaction coordinator, and that basically helps me make sure my paperwork is good. She does a little bit of compliance and then works with title companies and the lender, whereas I do most of the customer work. Then my transaction helps make sure that everything is moving along with the lender, because she's incredible with talking with lenders and getting them to finally send that piece of paperwork out. But it's me. I mean, you're sending that email to me. It's not going to go to me and then to someone else and someone else and someone else. Every concern, every part of the deal goes through me. And that's huge, in my opinion, because I don't want to have to get passed along if I was buying a house. And that's what, I mean, Melinda, you and I talked about it earlier today, of just being sort of hands-on. That's the whole point of being, in my opinion, why I'm a single agent, is because I'm hands-on, and my whole purpose is to, like, if you need hand-holding throughout the transaction, let's do it, you know, whatever you need, because I'm your girl.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a lot to add to that. I'm a solo agent as well, and I've had licensed admin at different time. I don't use one right now, and that person could help. Like, what if you have 2 families in town at the same time? So you might have somebody helping with showing, or she's there for your inspection, and then I'm reviewing it with you. So there's different advantages to that, but it's always me. Like you said, it's always me. I'm always the touch point. I too use a professional transaction coordinator because I'm better at negotiating. I'm better at needs analysis than I am at the details of which forms. We've got dozens of forms that the state requires from us. So I have somebody that helps to keep us double on track. But that's it, and either answer is okay. It's you just have to. We're talking about here about matchmaking, just like with the house. You just need to make sure that your agent is a good match for you.
100%.
Right. So
Okay.
hopefully this gave you some good information on questions to ask your agents when you're moving. I think one of the important things that we haven't mentioned yet is maybe you have already bought a home where you're currently stationed and you're getting ready to PCS and your agent has listed and sold that home. Start with them. Ask them who they know, because military realtors like us, we are constantly working with people going in between bases. And all of us have referral partners at all the different bases, and they're not just partners. They're not just people we've sent business to. It's people who've done an amazing job with our clients and who work at the same level that we do, as far as customer service. So, and if you aren't selling a home where you're at currently, reach out to one of us. Maybe you're not PCSing to any of the areas we cover, but I guarantee we know someone amazing where you are going.
We
So
do, and we trust them already. We know them personally. It's not just, like she said, it's not just a business relationship. It's one of those things where we're willing to hang our reputation on giving that name to you because we know they'll do a good job. And we sort of haven't touched on this much, but when you're interviewing an agent, not just interviewing someone because they might say they're a vet or they might be a military spouse, sort of a funny thing because I am a Navy wife and Christina is as well, but that's not what makes us good realtors. It's part of why we understand the PCS process because we've lived it, but we're good realtors based on how we interact with our customers and how we care about our customers, not just because of what our husbands do for work.
right. Noelle Baumgartner, my business partner in Florida, she's not military. She was never in the military. Her husband wasn't either. But I'd say I think she told me 98% of her business is military families.
Right.
So she knows it just as good as we do, and she understands the process. So finding that agent who has that experience and can relate to you and take things off your plate because they know what other things you need to focus on is critical. So
yeah, it's huge. But you're right. Sorry, I sort of interjected that in the middle of talking about we know people in all the cities. So if you need help finding an agent and we're not Jacksonville, Whidbey, San Diego, we've got people in Virginia Beach, we've got people in Hawaii, we've got people everywhere. Whatever it is, give us a call. We'll have our info at the end of this.
Right. And I think it touches a couple things. So we're going to, next time we already got into a little bit into buying sight unseen. So we're going to deep dive into sight unseen. I think we alluded, we intend to bring you some lenders in the future. And I think what we will probably do at some point too, whether it's on our side channels or the main thing here, we'll bring you some of those agents at other places as well. We've talked about doing that too, to give you insight, that boots on the ground thing. We want to ask you guys before we go that in the comments, any topics you want covered, we're open. It's open book, open season. And like we said before, we're your boots on the ground.
Yeah, please give us your ideas. We have a general idea of all the things we want to touch on and help you guys with through the Empowered PCS, but what's going to help you most is just throw it out there. Comment, send us a personal message, whatever it is. Let us know how we can help you.
Yeah, we're here for you. So thanks for watching.